Hello everyone, I'm here bringing you our Let's Code event featuring Ren'Py screens. I've got Joey with me here today, and we're going to be going over a few problems that are that I've created. And so let's take a look at the first one. If I can get rid of this old stuff. And open up the Let's Code for screens. If we take a look at this, it says the first thing we're going to do in our script is call screen assignment 1. So let's look at the extra screens.rpy file. And it says assignment 1, this text button doesn't do anything, add an action so it will return control once it's clicked. So do you know how to do this one, Joey?
Not really, no.
Okay, so what you would need to do is you'd need to add an action to this text button. The let's go back one. So we were going to say action after the x-align, y-align part. And then our action is simply return, a returning control. So return with a capital R and the braces. Oops, what did I do? There we go. Okay. So I'm going to do, so this is what we need to add right here that I'm about to post to that line there. And if you are ever unsure about different actions to use, you can check out the documentation on screen actions. So after I make that change, let's save it and then go ahead and run it. And then it says assignment 1, and let's go back. I can highlight it and go back, and it says you managed to fix assignment 1. And then assignment 2, we're stuck with that. We have going to seeing the solution image, which is supposed to look like this for those of you who are watching. And that's the next one to do. Okay, so any questions about assignment number 1?
Nope, not really.
Okay, cool. So assignment 2 says these text buttons are spaced weirdly, plus you have to align them all individually. Put them in the box so that they are spaced 10 pixels apart from each other, make them centered overall. Once you've finished, add return actions to the buttons. So what I'm going to do right here is I have 3 text buttons that are just aligned by themselves, and they don't look too bad, but I had to do all that by myself. And so I'm going to refactor this. I'm going to put them in an H box. I'm going to say, for the H box, I'm going to say X align 0.5 because it says makes them centered, and Y align 0.6 because that's the same as all the buttons were before. Then I'm going to remove all this because I don't need that anymore. I'm going to put action return again. Hi! Hi, Jeros.
Sorry, I overstepped. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So we're on assignment 2 right now. And basically all I'm doing is I'm moving text buttons from being individually placed to being inside an H box. And if we save that and we run it, go back from assignment 1, and if we take a look at assignment 2, it's not quite right yet because they're not spaced yet. So what we need to do is add in some spacing, and it says specifically in the assignment that they should be 10 pixels apart from each other. So that's actually really simple and easy to do. We just, for the H box, put the property spacing 10. Like this. And that will give us the look that we want. So let's check it to make sure. So yeah, so 1, 2, 3, see the solution. It doesn't look like it changed at all, except that the solution text is on there now too. So that looks right, and I'm gonna go ahead and return, and then we're gonna say we fixed assignment 2. Okay. Hello. Looks like I should have waited longer.
It's fine. I think we should start anyway.
Yeah. We've actually already gone through half the assignments.
Wow. That's okay. I didn't even do the science.
Oh no. Did anybody even try them?
I don't even know how to start.
What do you mean you don't know how to start?
So let's see. Log text. Just keep it going.
Okay, so we've finished assignment 2 in the extrascreens.rpy file. It says assignment 3, it says this text button should increment the variable A3 and return. So we know that we're going to have to add an action here because it needs to do something. And we're going to have an action return as well. But if we just do that, it's not going to do the incrementing the variable. For those, in the script.rpy file, we have a default A3 equals 0 over here. And that needs to be turned into 1. So how are we going to do that? Anybody have any ideas? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to add another action, which means that in order to do this right, we have to make the action a list of actions, actually. So I'm putting square braces around my return for right now. It's now a list of actions with just one action that will still just return, but now we can add an extra action in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at screen actions, and I want to find data actions so that that will set or toggle data. I don't want add to set, I don't want set dictionary, I don't want set screen variable, I want set variable. Right here where it says just sets a variable to equal a value. And so what you need to do is, before we return, because return is always the end thing, the last thing that happens, it returns control to wherever it was coming from. So if you return and then try to do something afterwards, whatever's happening afterwards won't even happen at all. So we need to put this first. We're going to do set variable. And then our variable is called A3. And we're going to set it to be A3 plus 1. And then we put a comma in there so it looks like this in the end that we added our action. like that. So I'm going to go ahead and run it after I save. And we did assignment 1 already. And assignment 2 looks good. So let's look at assignment 3. Let's click that increment button. It says it looks like you got assignment 3 working. And then we move on to assignment 4. Okay, so let's take a look at what's actually going on in the script.rpy file. If you look at that, I have while not A3 here, and then if it says that, it'll say, oops, it looks like it didn't work, and then it'll go back to the screen again. So basically, if you had just added the return function, the return action, it would have been an infinite loop that would have just kept saying, oops, it looks like it didn't work, oops. So that obviously would not have been good if we hadn't actually incremented our variable. So the last thing we're doing is calling assignment 4 screen with passing it these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's take a look at assignment number 4. This is the hardest one. It says this screen should display a grid of objects in a list as text buttons. The grid should be 2 rows tall and as many rows wide as needed with a spacing of 5 pixels between them, between each text button. Careful, if you get an odd number of numbers, this should still work. When you're done, add return actions to your text buttons. So if we take a look at what we have right now, we just have an empty grid of 4 nulls. So the first thing we need to, let's take a look at how grids work for screens. I'm going to look at the screens documentation on Ren'Py. And a grid says it displays its children in a grid. Each child is given an area of the same size, the size of the largest child. And it shows it needs to be given columns times row children. So the first thing we're going to notice is that we are asked to make it 2 rows tall. So it's always going to be something 2. So how many columns wide should it be? Who is playing music?
Charles.
Okay.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Sorry, I didn't realize I'm still Discord. It's not even pushed to talk more anymore. Sorry.
Okay.
So how many rows wide?
Well, we know it's going to be 2 rows tall, so that's going to be a 2 for all the time. But how many columns wide is it going to be?
How many columns should it be, right? So it should be cap.
Okay, so what we're given there is numbers, right?
Yep.
So it's got to have something to do with how big numbers is, right? Like if we're given 2, we only want 1 column.
Right, so half of that.
So half of that. So how do we get the how many numbers there are again? Do you know how to do that?
Is that, I don't know. probably. So let's see. This is user input, right? Just however many you want.
Right, but I mean, specifically, we're getting past a list here. So, yes, we're getting past a list. And that has a certain number of things in it. How do you tell how many elements are in a list?
I mean, if I'm using a different language, I use count or dot count or something.
Yeah, okay, so there's a similar thing in Python. It's called len for length.
Length of, okay.
So we're just going to put len numbers like this and that will return our length. So, but what if we have an odd number? If we have, well, if we definitely don't want length just by itself. We want length over 2, right?
Right.
So then if we are given an odd number, if we're given, say, 3 different ones.
Okay, just say length numbers divide by 2, int division by 2.
Mm-hmm. So with Python, it doesn't automatically truncate, so we do need to translate that to an int.
Floor or whatever the.
No, we can just do int. That'll work. So it looks like this.
Sure. Then you add the mod divided by 2.
Mod divided by 2?
I mean, length of numbers mod 2. Is that possible?
We can do that, but that'll just give us 0 or 1, and then if we divide that by 2, we'll get 0 every time.
No, as in, you have the int length numbers over 2.
Mm-hmm.
That would give you basically if it's an odd number, say numbers is 5, you get 2 that.
That's right. So we would only have 2 by 2 or 4 slots and 5 numbers. So that wouldn't work right.
So that's why I suggested add to that mod of length numbers divided by. No, I mean length of numbers mod 2. So if it was 5 mod 2, it would be 1.
Right, but so the way grids work in Ren'Py, it needs to be some whole number by some other whole number. So we can't have a grid of 5. It has to be 6.
Sure.
So what we need to do is we need to actually add 1 to the length of numbers before we divide it by 2. So then if we have 5, it'll bump it up to 6. And then when we divide it by 2, we'll have a 3 by 2.
Oh, that works too. Okay.
And then, so if it's 4, if it's an even number, that'll bump it up to 5. When we divide, it'll still be 2. So it'll give us the right amount.
Sure. That works.
Okay, so then that's going to give us the right amount. And then let's get rid of these nulls here for now. And then what we need to do is we need to loop over the numbers and create a text button for each one. So we're going to say for num in numbers, text button num, like that. And it's going to be action return because it says to do that. So like it's going to look like this. Okay. But what if we have an odd number? What if we have 5 again? We'll only be filling 5 slots of the grid, and that's an error. So we need to have a null in there if we have an odd number. So how do we check if something's odd? You were on to this earlier.
Use mod.
Yeah, we'll use modulus. So still inside the grid, we will say if length of numbers modulus 2 equals 1. So if it's an odd number, we'll just add a null. So that's going to look like this. And that should be what we need. So let's try it out and see if it's right or if I made a mistake. So there's assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3, and assignment 4. Oh, it looks like I did forget something. I'm checking the solution right now, and they're not spaced 5 pixels apart. So that's going to be, once again, we need to do a spacing of 5 this time for the whole grid. And that's, other than that, that's the only thing we needed to fix. So let's run that again just to be sure. There, that looks better. Yeah. Okay. So that is our solutions for all the assignments. Does anybody have any questions?
Where do you put the line space? I mean, the spacing between the funds? Is it inside the for loop?
It's inside the grid.
Inside the grid, 2 by, well, it's not 2 by 2 anymore. That thing, okay. Sure.
Okay, so any other questions? And at this point, I'm going to turn it into an open floor, and you can ask just questions about screen language in general if you want.
I think it would be nice next time if you had some sort of screen share.
I do have a screen share, but we can't do that through voice chat.
We can try Google Hangouts if there's not that many people.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I wanted to do this through this Discord right here, specifically because it's parallel with the Let's Reads, you know?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if Google Hangouts would be a good idea because of that. We'll have to...
You can probably do screenshots every time you...
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah.
At least instead of these, things they just posted, you have some sort of context to where they're placed.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that. So does anybody have any questions on how screen language works in general?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Then I guess we're going to turn it into discussion for next time. Does anybody have any burning topics that they want me to cover? Crickets.
Do you ever get questions about coding just in the dev talk randomly?
Not usually in Dev Talk, but I get them on my YouTube channel sometimes.
Oh.
And the Ren'Py server has quite people asking questions a lot.
I think if we can find good questions here, you might want to go there and stuff.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do that to try and source for the next time. I was just wanting to see if anybody had anything they particularly wanted me to do. Because I always like to get feedback from people. Speaking of which, what can I do to make it so that people actually attempt the assignment ahead of time, or do I just need to drop assignments in general? Crickets again.
Something that entices people to join and participate in the assignments. I could probably get some ideas later.
Okay, that's fine. Drawing a blank now. I mean, it's a little bit difficult because especially because this is originally was supposed to be last week's topic. And so I feel like maybe some people got confused about it.
I think it makes sense if you, well, this is probably not something you can easily implement, but I think before, at least in the server I was, oh, hello.
Hello.
We're just thinking of ideas to make people come and do the assignments.
And then you came.
I did come. I got home.
Yay.
But I was gonna suggest, like, I don't think this is gonna work, but having making a VN from the ground up and having people participate in the coding.
Now there's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I thought about something like that, but we'd need to do a lot of like group sharing controls kind of stuff. Like I'd probably spend like half my time teaching people how to use Git or something.
GitHub or something?
Yeah.
More like, maybe like you can code it, but as you're coding, you can probably think of, oh, maybe this might be something, a problem that you can share with people.
Okay.
Sure, okay.
It's like, you're not putting it out there for everyone to code for themselves, but that as you're coding, you realize there's a fun problem here, coding problem that might be.
What is a fun coding problem?
I mean, along the way you'll get like, oh, this is something that I can easily do, but it seems like it might be a good teaching opportunity.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the problem with that is if I try to do something like that on the fly, then we'll end up probably with something that I won't have as many teaching opportunities to do.
Another suggestion would be, I don't know, assignments just seem like they're home, so try to make it fun.
Maybe I should call them challenges instead?
Better wording. Ideally, people in DevTalk would be doing dev stuff that would have questions and ask you.
Yeah.
But that's not really the case.
No.
So take the questions from the Ren'Py server and use them, kind of now.
Maybe.
I think the root issue really is that no one is really programming, or if they are, they have no questions. The whole reason why we code is to answer or to help people code, right? If they're making it. But if no one is actually doing that, then there's no real point.
Or they might be like me, where they want to learn to code, but they can't find time to come. Or they're not prioritizing it.
Yeah.
I would say even move the time to be right before or after the lesson reading, which is more popular, so that people stay.
Oh, I don't think people are going to want to do two things in a row.
No, that's another thing.
Because that's like that's pretty intense, you know?
I mean, how long is Let's Code anyway? I mean, we blew through it in like 20 minutes.
Oh, seriously? The first time I tuned in, it was over an hour long.
Yeah, it varies. Because sometimes there's more questions and sometimes there's not. So it can vary anywhere from like a half hour to an hour and a half. I mean, this is only our third one, so.
Let's see.
Another problem that I've noticed with Let's Code, at least from the few I've participated in, it's a little difficult to follow because there's no screen share or anything like that. So
Yeah.
if I'm like 5 minutes late, I can't catch up.
I mentioned that.
Yeah, we did discuss that. I am possibly thinking about doing a Hangouts thing or something like that, but I'd have to discuss that with Miko and the other moderators because I think that, I mean, part of the idea for doing this was to help generate traffic to this server. So if we go somewhere else, it seems like it kind of defeats the purpose of it.
You can have the invites be from the Discord server, so people have to be here to go.
That's...
Are you also inviting people from outside the server as well?
Well, I'm inviting people on my YouTube channel, but I'm inviting them to the server, so...
Okay. Then I think having the invite be on the server is okay.
Okay, well, we'll have to discuss that with the mods, but we'll see. Maybe we'll do something like that in the future.
The problem is for those who came from the YouTube, they say, "Oh, I just go to the Discord to get to the Hangouts. What's the point? Why can't you just give me a link to the Hangouts straight away?"
Because it's generate traffic to Discord.
Yeah.
But for them, it's fucking inconvenient.
Well, that means they're not gonna go anyway. Like, what's the downside to that?
Well, if they only show the Discord server for the Let's Code, then what's the difference between coming to the Discord server first and then then leaving to the Google Hangouts versus coming on here, joining Let's Read, and then or Let's Code and just leaving again?
Yeah.
So, whatever, it's too complicated. That's why. So the alternative I suggested was just to have periodic screenshots being posted when there's like any change. As Ambish is talking, she could just give the solutions and the how to reach the solutions. So it's not screen share, but it's as close as it gets to.
Honestly, for me, I think it's easier to like if Let's Code. So, are you recording Let's Code's Ambish?
Yes, I am recording this right now.
Okay, so hi. So, my opinion with instructional videos like this is doing it as a live session is difficult because say I missed the point. I want to be able to pause or go back and just re-listen to it. Obviously, the advantage of doing it in live is that you are here, so if we want to ask questions, we can ask you right away. But for someone who's late or someone who missed a point and don't speak out right away, then they get lost and then they can't recover.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's part of why I'm posting the videos afterwards so that people can go over it again.
Or maybe post at the start of the session, post the answer straight away so we can go why we changed and something like that without like having to, oh wait, what did you just change to do?
Okay.
I almost want to say, maybe you should, okay, this is gonna sound, like this is gonna be very, very work heavy on your part, but and have people watch it or something, and then during the Let's Code session, we'll share questions, and maybe you can answer them or something.
I feel like that has its issues.
It does. Yeah. Hello,
because
it's just cat. Just a thought.
Yeah, I'll think about it. I'm just kind of like a little bit concerned about what's the best format to do this in because it's, it doesn't seem to be working as well as I would like.
I would agree with that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think it might be nice to entice people. But I think this what I'm trying to say. I think this advice was given before in that you can use examples from already established VMs and say, how do we do that? Kind of give an example.
Yeah, but that would require me to actually have people willing to show their code for actually already established VMs.
Do that, so you can try to replicate it. It doesn't have to be their code, but like, how would I do this effect? Or how would I bring up the screen?
But the problem with that is that if someone's willing to look at content and try to figure out how to emulate it, most of those people will probably be more comfortable just looking up their own documentation and experimenting themselves.
Yeah, this is supposed to be more aimed at beginners.
Yeah, which runs into another problem is that if they're too much of a beginner that they don't know anything about programming, and then they run into a brick wall before they start. And another problem is that people who do generally begin start off with a quick start documentation, which is, in my opinion, pretty good for what it is. And I don't know, I feel like we're lacking the demographic in addition to the poor medium to hold these sessions in.
Doesn't Ren'Py have like a visual novel for teaching how to code?
It has a tutorial that comes with it.
Yeah, so is there any difference outside of what they do versus what you're trying to do? Because there's already a medium for a resource.
Well, there's already a resource, but most people find that it's not enough. And
It's a good example. Yeah, that thing is a good example, but not a good explanation of how things work. I have to go to the several times to figure out why this thing works this way. So this one has more explanation, but yeah, we just don't know what exactly we need to talk about really.
yeah.
I think it has to have directions, so at some level.
Maybe. Can I just give another suggestion? Let's use the Ren'Py demo as the basic template because it has the answer already, and we just go through that why this thing works this way, this way, this way.
Okay, we can do a session on that. That would be fine. But I mean, have you ever actually looked at the tutorial? It has a lot of files.
Yeah, I looked through it. It's actually, I thought it was helpful.
I mean, I'm just trying to aim at the people who have zero idea of what Ren'Py is and how to even code. So if you're aiming there, then
I think
we have to go through that.
No, I think if that's the demographic that Ren'Py is targeting, which I don't believe it is, then those people should probably go look at the quick documentation before they even come here. Because if they don't even know how to put in, like, if they don't even understand the idea of coding and they've never coded in their lives, then
okay. I think maybe the demographic is people who are familiar with coding but haven't really touched Ren'Py.
Yeah, but then now the problem becomes if they're experienced at coding, then reading just direct documentation shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, this is more, I guess, I want to say it's still beginner oriented, but it's not like absolute beginner oriented. So it's oriented for people who are trying to learn Ren'Py and have already had a little bit of experience with it, but are having trouble learning different things that they need to for stuff like that.
That's fair. I think we have to clearly define the demographic we're looking for, because I think that's really going to shape the content that we talk about.
Mm-hmm. But I also talk about more intermediate content as well on my YouTube channel. So, like, for instance, our first one was the Gui Programming.
Yes. Though I personally am not quite to GUI yet. I'm still trying to figure out some random Scrum stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone like me who finished reading the quick documentation, the quick start documentation, and I've tried dabbled a little bit. For me, GUI is what I would consider to be more advanced content.
Yeah.
I have zero idea how to work GUI at all.
Yeah, I mean, so this whole screens thing is meant to be kind of like a bridge to GUI, because that's what you do with screens, right? You make stuff display things.
Okay, I wasn't here in the session, so I have no idea what screen is.
Yeah, so I basically made 4 short assignments that were using screen language and screen code to get the desired look.
Well, how is screen different from, I don't know, a displayable or like text script and so on?
So a screen is basically it's like a container for displayables.
Like a text box, for example?
Not necessarily a text box. It'll take up the entire screen itself. But most of it's just transparent as to begin with, and then you can add things to it, basically.
Like, give me examples you can add.
So what we did for this assignment was mostly with text buttons. So we were adding buttons in various places on the screen and doing things with them and stuff like that.
Okay.
And for instance, for assignment number 2, we took 3 individual buttons that were placed individually on the screen and we put them inside a box instead so that we didn't have to place them individually.
I see. I haven't seen. Well, another problem for me is that I think I have a limited experience in different kinds of visual novels, so I don't understand how this would even have a use. But that I think that's just for me. Like I just have to read more content.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I don't think I've ever played a visual novel with a minigame inside, but apparently those are popular. But I've never encountered any.
Yeah, I've played a few with mini games, and they're kind of fun.
Oh, yeah, like Rose. Oh, yeah, never mind. I should go off in tangents.
What? Oh,
I was gonna talk about Muramasa, but I don't know.
Well,
there was a very stupid minigame in Masas.
well, I think we pretty much got through this portion, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that we're gonna call it for the night, and then we can just chat afterwards. All right, so thank you everybody for coming. I'm sorry that it didn't work out as well as planned. I'm gonna continue to try and evolve this so that we can get better participation and more things going on. And so I hope you guys were patient with me, and I'll see you next week.